You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here. And man, just like any other time, we have another special guest. Today, we have a true honor talking to our guest. Today, we have Doris Jackson Shazier. She is an author, a speaker, leadership, and people management consultant. She has a website you need to check out. It's ShazierCoachingConsultant.com. We'll learn everything about her and her accomplishments and also her story. So first, just want to say, how you doing, Doris? Thank you for your time. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited.
Well, I appreciate you taking time talking to us. I know you are doing great things, great work. You are doing a lot of work with your brand, with people management and consulting. So kind of give us a backstory. What inspired you to start this brand and what was the need that you saw out there that you felt like, you know what, I can address this?
All right. So long story short, what really drove me into going full time into Shazier coaching and consulting was my passion and desire to develop leaders. So I've spent the last 20 years working in corporate America, all in management level positions where I was responsible for just driving forth whatever the organization goals were through the people component. So identifying talent, building their leadership and business acumen and really helping people to be the best that they could be. And so I went through a pretty, I would say, kind of traumatic experience where, the work environment just wasn't a good fit for me anymore. And so I decided to kind of venture out on my own and not limit myself to one brand or to one company, but to literally take my passion and kind of my secret sauce of how I develop people to share it across all types of organizations. So now I get to work with small, medium, large size organizations. I do one-on-one leadership coaching with people in leadership positions, but then I also do team coaching and facilitating of leadership and soft skills to help companies kind of transform their teams.
When you look at the valuable experience that you were able to gain before you got your wings, if I can put it that way, At what point did you say, you know what, like, I really can start making my own time schedule and I can start making my own profit in my own way, be my own boss? And at that point, what was that process like for you? Because I know it wasn't like snapping the finger and you was just balling. It was more like a bumpy road, and you had to learn even more when you decided to, step forward into your dream.
Yeah, so I would tell you, much like a lot of people in this world, like COVID did something, or it provided kind of like this launching pad for us to look at how we're living our life differently. And so for me, I found myself hospitalized for 7 days. And then placed on oxygen treatment for 3 months. And so it sat me down. At that point, I was like in a regional director level position where I had about 10,000 employees covering about 5 states, doing a lot of traveling, just busy. And to be sat down in the stillness and the quietness of my own thoughts, it really helped me to really think about, yeah, you like your job, you like what you're doing, but is this what you're supposed to be doing? Are you limiting yourself in any kind of way? Are you living your best life? And so that's when I started to craft my plan. But I was promoted again shortly after it with that company, and I took on a nicer role. And so I sat on those thoughts for probably another year or so before I actually, went and started to launch my own brand. And so it was a slow moving, kind of like a snowball effect where it became more pressing and getting bigger. And really the dream became a little bit more clear as of, yeah, it feels good, or it looks good on paper, what you're doing currently, but is this what you're really purposed to do? And so, yeah, my dream started to really come into vision in the stillness of those moments when I was ill and really couldn't move and couldn't travel, and really started to think about what I wanted my life to look like. And And I really wanted to reclaim a lot more of my time. And I really wanted to help more people than who I was helping at the time, like being restricted to one company. And so I started thinking then about what does this look like across industries and different organizations. And so it kind of began there. So once I took that leap, I started, designing my business model. I started putting my name out there. I had a lot of people knew what I did for that company, but a lot of people outside of my company didn't understand what my role was. So I spent a lot of time really educating others on what it is that I do, what type of value that I create for their brand, and building those relationships and connections.
This is I Am Refocused Radio. We're talking to our guest today, Doris Jackson Shazier. You go to her website. It is shaziercoachingconsultant.com. Today's topic, when it comes to women in leadership, balancing career and family, my next question for you is, what ways societal expectations and gender roles impact you as a woman and ability to really make clear where you stand with your values and also your contributions, but also how you measure impact with, building that rapport with your clients?
So I think that, society has about two buckets that they want to put us in, right? Either you're like a full out feminist, independent woman, you can do it all for yourself, you don't need a man, or you have to be a traditional stay at home, nurture the kids and not necessarily have a career. And there's so many women in leadership that we're kind of the in between. I am a mother of 4, and it's really important for me to be a mom and to be a nurturer. I've been with my husband, who was my college sweetheart, for the last 21 years. It's important that I'm a great wife to him. But I'm also a woman who identifies as very independent, and I love to work in leadership, and I'm a boss when it comes in that workspace. And so for me, I think society sometimes tries to create two buckets when there really are more buckets than that. And I fall somewhere in between. And so for the ladies like me, I kind of help teach and encourage them to establish high accountability and high morale at work and home. I think sometimes some of us that have that fit in that in-between space, we struggle with being one person at work and then having to be another person at home, or feeling like we can't be operate in our softness at work or our femininity, and then we come home and then we struggle to kind of take off some of those things we have to put on to work. And I kind of encourage women to really think about or really reduce that dissonance. The things that make you a great leader and a great wife or a great mom also will make you very, very successful in the workplace. It's good to be a nurturer. It's good to set good boundaries. It's good to positively reinforce. It's good to reward. Like, all of those qualities work very well in both spaces. So I think what I'm on a mission to do is to help people understand that the same qualities that make you successful at home will make you successful in the workplace. And some of the same qualities that make you successful in the workplace will make you successful at home. It's about knowing how to pull on those levers in each environment.
And speaking of pulling those levers, what you were saying moments ago makes me think about authentic leadership, because in order for you to bring your own uniqueness to the table and your unique perspective, you have to be able to be comfortable being able to do that. Kind of touch on that with the audience, how being authentic with your leadership and just you as a person can give you a lot of benefits and strides.
Yeah. So I have to start with saying that I wasn't always my most authentic self. I was someone that, as I was climbing the corporate ladder, I fell into the trap of code switching, of pretending to be something that wasn't as authentic to me so that I could get ahead. And I hate sometimes that I did that. But for me, it was so important. Like, I was just ambitious. And it was so important for me to get into those rooms. But the more I matured, the further I got, the more it became uncomfortable to always have to show up or switch or turn on a certain type of perspective or personality or voice in order to be heard. And so it became mentally and emotionally exhausting. So for people that have to do it, okay, I get it. Been there, done that. What I would tell you is it exhausted me. It caused burnout. It caused dissonance. It caused unhappiness. And the closer I moved into being who I am authentically, into not having to switch or turn on and off certain parts of my personality in order to be successful, the more comfortable I became. And then what I was able to learn is, who wants to be in a room where the real you isn't accepted anyway? Why fight to get into rooms that don't really accept the real you? Is it really worth it? And I think that's what people have to really question for themselves. Is it worth it to be in certain rooms? I spent a lot of times climbing a corporate ladder, and I got pretty much right up under that C-suite position, and with the VPs, and sitting in and consulting and engaging and doing the strategic planning with these people, only to realize that I didn't really like it. I'm happy I got to see it, but it really wasn't for me. So I think that's what people have to think about when they're thinking about compromising their authenticity in order to go into spaces. Is it what you genuinely want? And how does this play into your long-term purpose? I have found that it's not worth it.
Communication plays a vital role in any relationship, professionally or personally. You looking back at what you were able to do in the corporate world and versus what you're doing now as your own boss with your own brand, did communication for you, did it change, or was it like you were able to communicate the way you always wanted to?
No, it definitely adapted. Again, I think I spent a good part of my career maybe playing the game, doing what I needed to do in order to get ahead, to get into certain rooms. And as I got older and more comfortable in my own skin, my authenticity really, really started to show. And so then it became harder it became harder to not say what I genuinely thought, or to kind of compromise or sit still on things that required action. So again, I hate to admit it sometimes, but I went through this phase of kind of the thing that we experience, especially as minorities, climbing in corporate in the corporate ladders is where we have to assimilate in order to make progression. And I'm so happy to see a little bit of change in that dynamic in terms of more companies are understanding the importance of authenticity and how that creates value in the workplace. But yeah, I've had to change my communication style and adapt so that I could have actual impact in some spaces.
This is on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Doris Jackson Shazier. You can go to her website, ShazierCoachingConsultant.com. In today's topic, we are talking about women in leadership, balancing career and family. So my next question, you touched on the key word I really appreciate, and that's value. Let's dive into what does self-value mean for you, because it's one way to have someone claim what you are versus what you know who you are.
I like that question. So self-value for me, and again, it is about that knowing, right? It's about knowing exactly who you are. I think self-value really equates to authenticity. It's that courage, or almost that audacity, to be authentically you, and to know your worth. And to really show up in a way that helps others to easily understand your worth, because the way that you carry yourself, the way that you show up, creates almost this aroma of worth about you. And so that it's easy for people to understand who you are because of the way you carry yourself. And so that's kind of how I think about self-value.
Reason why I want to ask that too is because you also, like I said earlier in the show, you're an author. You're author of Raising Justice, Lessons Learned Through Motherhood, and with relationship to today's topic, I think that works hand in hand. When you wrote this book, what was some of the core ingredients that you were hoping that readers would be able to appreciate?
Well, there are 2 or 3 things that were really, really important for me with this book. Number one, I wanted to chronicle the journey that starts with me as a pregnant, confused, first generation, 19-year-old college student, and my journey to raising a high-performing 19-year-old college graduate. So I've had the great fortune of, coming from a place at that age of confusion and raising a child that I got to see walk across the stage at the same age I was contemplating whether I would even have her. So it's a story that almost didn't happen. And so I wanted to share that journey, but I also wanted readers to walk away with a story of resilience, with an example of not to focus on the moment because there's so much more in store. If we just kind of put one foot forward, because that's definitely what happened to me. I could have never imagined the life I was going to live when I was 19 and confused and thinking about carrying on with this pregnancy. But it's an amazing experience to now see her thriving. And again, with her college degree at that same age. The other thing that I really wanted to establish is the power of just forgiveness and growth. I often tell people that the book is called Raising Justice. That's my daughter's first name. But Raising Justice is really it's a verb, really. It's about parenting in a way that you weren't parented. So in this book, you get to see me challenged by this curious and precocious little girl and me resisting the urge to treat her or parent her in a way that I was parented. And so I know a lot of people can relate to how do you raise a child differently than the way that you were raised, and the challenges that come along with it. So you get to hear a lot of transparent thoughts, a little bit of my practical advice, and things that I use in order to raise such a high-performing child, and really how I had to suspend judgment or kind of stop myself for perpetuating things that had been perpetuated towards me because I wanted a different type of relationship with my daughter.
When you look at the clients that you serve, you're helping everybody and you're using a lot of personal experience and professional experience. But what do you believe emotional intelligence can play in the leader's ability to drive sustainable change and growth?
Man, I think emotional intelligence is really the foundation of that sustainable growth. For me, I'm a support, I'm a tool in a leader's toolkit. However, their emotional intelligence plays such a huge part in their ability to receive coaching and their ability to apply coaching. And like you said, in order to sustain the things that they learn from a coach like me. So emotional intelligence, it plays a very critical part in that experience of growing as a leader and also in that ability to grow other leaders.
When you look at balancing all of this from your professional world, and like you said earlier, you have to catch yourself to kind of dial back from what you are in the workplace to what you are in the family space. When you look at your children, when you look at the opportunity to see them grow as future leaders, how do you see everything that you work with your clients be applied to helping your kids as well when they are growing into being productive citizens?
So one of the frameworks that I use with my children that I also use with my clients and I used when I was in the workforce is what I like to call high accountability, high morale. And so it's the same process and I just apply them in both spaces. So much like on a job where people have individual development plans, IDPs for their employees, I have IDPs for my children. I have individual development plans and things that we're working on academically, socially, and they're involved with it. So we have these conversations. We do regular check-ins. I become an accountability partner for them and the goals that they set for themselves. Once we reach them, we celebrate, so I recognize their efforts and I reward when they're successful in achieving those goals. So I take a lot of the same framework I would use with developing leaders or supporting my clients. And I actually use those same tactics and things with my children. And, it's just the age appropriate version of it. But what I have found, again, I have a 19-year-old who's graduated college. What I found is applying that same type of structure not only helped us to have a high accountable relationship, but it made our morale high. I'm someone they can trust. I'm someone they listen to. And we have shared vision on what they want for their lives and where they're going.
Diversity plays a role in not just corporate life, but also if you are your own boss, CEO, what have you. Diversity will always be something that we can't, look over. So with your experience, how has diversity been something that you try to use, not just inspire your clients, but to also be a vital part of your brand?
Well, for me, diversity is, and I like to say, DEIB. So, all of it kind of together, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Really, it's just the human part of our business. It's the human part of what we do. I've had the opportunity to serve as a diversity council president when I was in the workforce, and I created safe spaces for individuals that may have been of minority population, be it, race, gender, sexual orientation, whatever their minority checkbox was. But we gathered together and created safe spaces for them to express things that may be a part of their unique experience because they're seeing the world through a different set of lenses. And so for me as a business owner, I like to create those same safe spaces with my clients. It's a judge-free zone. I like to create high level of psychological safety where they know that regardless of whatever your checkbox is or whatever makes you you're different, that your feedback, your input, your contributions is welcomed and accepted and valued with me.
People today, there's a lot of options on the table if someone to be their own boss one day. Mm-hmm. You did it though. So when people look at you and they're like, man, how did she find that formula to be successful? What would you say to those in general perspective, how they can just stay encouraged as they maybe pursue that one day for themselves?
I think the biggest hurdle that a lot of people, like if we had to break it up into subsets of people, like it's the first step that I think holds a lot of people up. Some people wait for perfection. They wait for permission. They wait on all these different things before they just take the first step. I think the only thing that really differentiates me from another person who hasn't started a business or found success in business is number one, I have the audacity to just do it. And so I would encourage anyone that if you are thinking about it, take the first step. Because usually that's the one thing that people get hung up on is they don't take the first step. The second part of that is do it continuously. I think sometimes people give up too soon, or they get only 5 likes, or this post only gets 10 likes. And so they kind of turn their nose up at small beginnings. And when you're in the entrepreneurship world, like there's no such thing as a small beginning. All of it is a part of the story. There's no such thing as overnight success. Some people are discovered by the masses and it feels like it's overnight. But if you talk to them, they've been working on it for 10, 15, 20 years before they had that overnight moment. And so I would encourage people to first just do it. Secondly, keep doing it. It will pay off. And you have to believe that.
Let's Refocused Radio talking to our guest today, Doris Jackson Shazier. Go to her website, ShazierCoachingConsultant.com. When you look at the opportunities that you're able to have now to not just talk about your business on different platforms, but to talk to all walks of life who may need your service. Value is something that I can see is very special to you. It plays a big role in who you are as a person. When you look at Black women in leadership, what do you hope will be something that can be the new normal, if you will, in the future as far as how we look at Black women in leadership and how they are able to not just break ceilings, but to be able to showcase their value and what they contribute?
Wow, that's such an important question. I think my hope for Black women is that we are allowed to be assertive without being perceived as aggressive. I think also my hope for Black women is that we are allowed also to be soft and vulnerable, and not be policed or the hero sometimes. So I think in leadership, we are often pigeonholed into ultra strong, ultra aggressive, but really just these superhero, put on a cape type characters. And we are a little bit of that. We are superheroes in all of our glory. However, I do wish that we had spaces to be much softer, much vulnerable, and it not be picked apart. And then also when we are tenacious and courageous and bold and assertive, I wish that it wouldn't be perceived as angry or aggressive, because it's unfortunate. We have so many more emotions than anger, but oftentimes our emotions are read that way. And it's really unfortunate.
My last question for you is, when you look at the young minds out there in relationship to the topic today, women in leadership, balancing career and family, what would you want to say to your young minds out there and how they can navigate this thing called life, but still have that passion to not just pursue their career, but to also hold that value?
I think the advice that I would give to youth is really, number one, just do it. Again, I have a child that's Gen Zer, and sometimes, again, will become paralyzed in perfection and wanting to have every single thing worked out before they make movement. It does not have to be perfect. Sometimes action is better than no action at all. So I would encourage them to, number one, if it's on your heart, just do it. And number two, don't be afraid to fail. Oftentimes people will get caught up again with the fear of failure, and fear kills more dreams than actual fear and doubt really kill more dreams than necessary. Just do it. And don't be afraid to fail. It's one chapter in a big book. You just move on to the next chapter.
Been talking to our guest today, author, speaker, leadership, and people management consultant, Doris Jackson Shazier. Go to her website, ShazierCoachingConsultant.com. Like always, I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.